everybody. It's April 29th, and I've decided to step up some tomatoes today, and I wanted to share with you some different ways that I have grown my tomatoes, as well as how to step them up into solo cups. I have obviously overgrown way too many tomatoes this year that I could even imagine eating. Number one, because I don't eat tomatoes, but number two, because I only have so much garden space and I have seeded so many tomatoes that I can provide tomato plants to probably my entire neighborhood. It is a little bit obscene, but I have a huge problem with destroying tomato plants. I can't do it. Even this itty bitty baby here in this starter tray, look at this little bitty thing. It's right here. I can't pull it and throw it away. I can't do it. I have a problem with it. I can't do it. I'm just so overwhelmed and overjoyed and grateful for the germination rate that I got on all these seeds, because some of these seeds I actually pulled out of tomatoes from my garden from last year, dried them out, planted them, and they grew. I don't know why I was surprised that that would happen. It's just an overwhelming miracle that the Lord has created to completely reproduce food for us on earth forever. So I just think it's wonderful. So I grow tomatoes. I love to grow tomatoes. I just don't eat them. Sometimes I will eat them. If it's like salsa or tomato sauce or something like that, I can do that. I cannot eat a raw tomato. Some people can just grab a tomato and eat it like an apple, and that makes me gag. Like, the thought of that makes me sick. But people do it and they love it. So God bless you. And I will grow the heck out of a tomato for you. But I'm not an eater of a tomato. So I'm going to step up these tomatoes today and share with you how I do that. So one way that I grew tomatoes this year was in a 72 cell seed starter tray. It was by Jiffy. I've used them for several years. It comes with a tray that you could actually water from the top or from the bottom. It does not leak, and they fit on the grow light trays or shelves behind me all season since I started. I think I started seeding seeds this year, the beginning of March. So this is a 72 cell tray. I grew 3 varieties in here. One's Brad's Atomic Grape, which is a cherry tomato variety, the Abe Lincoln tomato, and the Brandywine tomato. I've never grown those seeds before. I bought them all these seeds from Baker Creek, which is rareseeds.com. They're pretty popular, and that's why I bought them. So I bought one seed packet of each. There was about 30 seeds in each one of them, and I planted 24 of each seed, and they all germinated, except for these Brandywines over here on the side that are little babies that I'm not gonna get rid of. But this is how they developed. I planted them on April 2nd, and it's now the 29th, and I would say that these are all about 3 inches tall to 4 inches tall. So they're getting to the point of getting a little leggy. One thing about tomatoes, when you do step them up, as well as when you put them in the ground outside, you can plant them up to the foliage. You can put them in a cup, plant them and bury them, the whole entire stem all the way up to the foliage, because tomato plants are the only variety of plant in a garden that actually root on the entire stem. Plants were developed and created as a vining fruit. It's supposed to grow laying on the ground and spread out like a pumpkin seed or anything like that. But because we don't want our vegetables and fruits to be laying on the ground, and they're so tender on their skin, they're not tough like a watermelon that's actually like in a shell, we as humans make them grow up and vertical grow, or we hang them in a topsy-turvy where they hang upside down, but we keep them off the ground. That's what we do as humans to keep them off the ground. And that's why you'll see at the bottom of the stem sometimes with tomatoes, you will see like pokey, stabby things coming out the bottom. Well, that's roots. It's just trying to suck onto grabbing a hold of the dirt. That's all it's trying to do. So if you look really closely at a tomato vine, which probably, I'm not sure how well this camera works. I've never used it before. But if you look very closely at this tomato stem, it's fuzzy. And all that fuzzy stuff that's on there is actually roots. So I just wanted to share with you that. I'm not sure if it'll even show up on the camera. But that's what those are. So I'm going to plant them into a cup, solo cups. This is what I purchased this year from Amazon. I found like a case of, I think it was 1,000 cups for like 30 bucks or something. So I bought them. These are the 18-ounce cups. I think next year I will go with a 16-ounce cup. They actually just fit in the 10-12 tray easier and more uniformly, because I like the bottom of the cup to sit flat in the tray, because I bottom water feed them after I get them stepped up into the cups. So I'll probably go with the 16-ounce cup next year. I also got 2 varieties of cups, and I don't see one around, but they have like ridges along the sides like this that go down to kind of where you can stick your finger in them and hold it. It has a little bit better of a grip. I didn't like those cups because they're hard to write on. I need a flat surface. So it's something else you might want to pay attention to when you do buy solo cups or any type of cup that you can write on, because those other ones are really hard to write on. So what I'm going to do to start stepping up a tomato is fill my cup about 1/3 of the way up. Make sure I put a little wedge down in there. And then I got this little tool. I think this came with one of my seed start trays, but it's a little fork and a little scooper. It's really helpful and really handy. I'm glad I have it. Or you can just use a spoon from the drawer in your kitchen. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to dig out one of these 72 cells. This tomato, which is the variety of a Brandywine. Pull it out. Oh, that doesn't have very much of a root, but I'm going to plant it anyway. Tomatoes, from what I hear, are pretty hardy. You can nearly kill them and they're going to come back because they're almost like a weed that you can eat. There we go. He's standing up. He's fine. He just needs some water. So I put that one in there. And like I said, this is a Brandywine. And another thing you want to do is make sure you start marking your cups maybe even before you start transferring them out. Like I know I have 24 Brandywines in here. I should just take 24 cups and mark them Brandywines before I even start. Otherwise you will forget. If you can see the shelf behind me, the 3 pepper plants on the top shelf there in the terracotta color cups, they're either a jalapeno or a bell pepper. I have no idea. They got mixed up when I was transferring them into the bigger cups, and that's what happened. So that's a product of my mistake. So this is a Brandywine. I started him by seed on 4.2. I'm stepping him up on 4.29. And I also mark on a plant stick, or a planter stick like this, in the same cup. So Brandywine. I also put both dates, 4.2 and 4.29. I like to know the date that I started the seed as well as the date I stepped them up. The reason I like to have a plant staker in there too is because when they're in the tray, I can't read necessarily what's on here if I have 24 in a big tray. But this I'd be able to read, especially when I go to sell them. I don't want to have to put them on a table and have to pick every cup up to see what variety it is on the cup. So that's how I'll do it. And then, as you see, I planted him in there pretty deep, and I planted him pretty close to the top of where the foliage is. As this tomato grows, I can continue to add dirt into the cup to support it, and all those fuzzies that are on the stem are going to adhere to that dirt and make more roots. The more root systems you create in this cup before you put them in the ground, the stronger and healthier your plant will thrive. Once even the plant gets tall and it's up here and the foliage is at the top and you have almost 12 inches or 6 inches of stem, you can plant the entire thing in the ground all the way down to the bottom up to the foliage. You'll be digging a pretty big hole, but it will develop such a root system that it will make your plant so strong and healthy and it will thrive. So that's one way that you put a plant, step up a tomato plant. And then the other ways that I grew tomatoes this year is cluster planting. I'd never done this before. This is the first year that I did it, and I'm very happy that I did because I feel very successful. Anything to make me feel like I did a good job, I'm happy. So this is basically like a raspberry plastic container, or maybe some sprouts were in this from the store. And throughout the fall and winter, I just saved them. Instead of recycling in the recycle, I had a garbage bag in the spare room, and I just cleaned them out and put them in there, and I said, you know, I'm going to reuse them. And this really saved me a lot of money. So I put potting mix in there, or I'm sorry, I did not put potting mix in here. I put the seed starter mix in here, which is vermiculite, peat, and perlite in these. So there's not a lot of nutrients in there. So as soon as your plants start to develop 3 or 4 or 6 leaves, that's when you want to start stepping them up into a solo cup or a bigger container. So in this little container, it was super sweet vining tomatoes. I had a total of 12 seeds. I put all 12 in here, and 9 of them germinated. I've already stepped up 2 others, but this is a product of cluster seeding. And as you see, there's different sizes in there. Over on this side, you might be able to see some of the vines or the roots that are in there. But these, I'm going to split these all out like I just did that last plant, and I'm going to step them up. So again, I'm going to take my cup. This mix right here that I'm using, this is potting mix. This is like the real deal potting mix. This is a bag. My neighbor gave me this bag. His sons always come down and help me. If they see me pull in the house with and open my trunk and I have groceries, they always ask. Those boys are so smart and so sweet and so caring and selfless. One's, I think, 14 and one's 11. One just had an 11th birthday. They're so sweet. So they always come down here and help me, and I do as much as I can with them in the neighborhood. When they're playing football in their front yard, I have them come over to my side yard because it's a little bigger. But I love that family. They're 2 doors down from me. And he knows that I'm a huge gardener, so he asked me if I wanted some potting mix. I said yes, and the next day there were 3 huge bags of this potting mix in my front yard. So I was very grateful for that, for him to give that to me. So I'm using it. It's a brand I've never heard of before, but once I step them up into these cups anyway, the potting mix is still good, but I also feed them about every 10 days with a diluted fertilizer so that they can get some more nutrients and thrive in their cups. So this is a super sweet. See the root system on this one? A little bit better than the last tomato that I just did. But I put the dirt in the cup, put a little hole in there, and just bury this guy up to the foliage. And I usually have the cup in here so I don't make such a mess. But this is the room that I'm in right now. I gotta give it a name. It's pretty fantastic in this room. I remember when I moved in this house, I was kind of sad I didn't have a garage. I just wanted a garage for storage and whatnot. And then I realized that the Lord really did bless me, because this room that I'm sitting in is actually a renovated garage. This is supposed to be a 1-car garage. They took the big garage door off, they put a people door on it that goes out to my driveway, and this is where the garage is supposed to be. So now I actually do have a garage, and it's heated and carpeted. So when I started this project back in February and built these shelves and hung all these lights and wired all these lights, because none of them were hardwired or plug wired, I built them in this room, and then I just laid a big 6 mil plastic on the floor so I can't spill, I can't get the dirt into the carpet, like I'm protecting it. So I love this room. I'm grateful. I thought that this room was going to be a big waste of space, and I am very, very, very blessed. So this little super sweet 100 vining tomato is in the cup. He's ready for some food. I will mark my cup. And this is a hybrid variety. Again, I planted it on 4.2 and it's 4.29. Super sweet. Cherry. And I'll stick that little plant marker in there. And again, as I watch this grow and get taller and taller, I will continue to add dirt. By the end of the time that this gets up to the top, this cup will be full of dirt. And I still have about 30 to 40 days before I can plant any tomatoes in the ground. So I look at these plants and the size of these plants, and I freak out a little bit because they're not nearly as big as this. I went to Home Depot this weekend, and they had the variety of cherry tomato that I love to make bruschetta with. And I could not find any seeds for this variety, which is a husky cherry tomato. Now, I've tried to grow this variety twice over the last 2 years, and I'm not even kidding you when I tell you a hornworm got them 2 years in a row. Completely destroyed my entire plant overnight. I was so upset. So I did splurge. I think these were $3.78 at Home Depot. And I wanted them in my garden, these two varieties. I'm doing a huge bucket garden this year that will house these two tomato plants. They get pretty tall. I'd say probably about 3 to 4 feet tall. But I started pruning these in their pots, and I stopped immediately because I wanted to share with you how to prune this tomato. This tomato, I mean, all tomatoes, you have to prune them so that they give you more fruit. And if you're vertical growing, then you can plant more tomatoes closer together than if you didn't prune them. So I started pruning this one, and then I stopped when I got to the sucker. And I'm not sure if this camera is going to show it to you or not because I've never used this camera to film before. But this husky cherry tomato, this tomato plant I have pruned to the point where I wanted to, and it looked exactly like this one before I started pruning it. So this may look like I just chopped off half of the plant, which I kind of did, but that's what you're supposed to do. Because even if I were to take this branch off and this branch off, this stalk here with the two V's is going to continue growing in this cup for 1 more month before I can put it in the ground, and I will bury it up to this point in the ground, and it will thrive. And this, you might be able to see a little bit better the fuzzies on the stem. But I wanted to show you this. This was the main reason I wanted to hold on to and film this. See this little guy here in the armpit of your main stalk, and then it has a branch? This little guy right here, this is called a sucker. So when they talk about snapping off your suckers or pruning off your suckers, that's what they're talking about. This is going to develop into a whole nother branch, and it's going to suck a lot of the energy from your tomato, and you don't want that to happen. So you want to make sure you take that sucker off, which I just did. And if you pay attention to this one, same thing. There's another sucker right there in the armpit. And again, you want to take that off. They're leeches. They take all the energy away from your tomatoes. So you want to make sure you do that as your tomatoes are growing in the garden so that you have thriving tomatoes. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you. These are a little light. I need to water them. And then this is another one. Here we go. All these little guys on the bottom, I can take them off. That one. That one. Look at this. See the main stem, and then you have a branch coming off, and you have this little guy in the armpit. You're normally supposed to just pinch off your suckers and be done with it. But I'm going to go ahead and take off that entire branch because it's going to promote more growth up at the top of my plant up here. And this right here, this branch. Here's a sucker right in the armpit. You're always going to want to take those off. But to promote more growth in my new plant, I'm going to go ahead and take that off. I remember when I did this last year, it gave me severe anxiety because I thought I was destroying half of the plant. But I pruned them one time at the beginning of the season before I put them in the ground. I pruned them one time after that, and then I had no more time to prune because it just was overwhelming. And my plants still thrived. So I can only imagine what the plants are going to do this year because I have a little bit more time in the way that I'm growing them. I'll have more time to prune them. So I just wanted to share that information with you and tell you that I'm grateful you spent some time with me today. I hope that the information I shared with you, you can take and use and have success with it, because I did. And I got all my information off of YouTube. Excuse me. And I hope that you join me on my next video. If you like this video, please share it with your friends. Hit the like button, which looks like this. Don't hit this button, but hit this one, and then hit subscribe or the little bell at the bottom of the screen, so that anytime I post a new video, you'll be notified right away. But I'm glad you hung out with me today. Thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you next time. God bless.